For me, look, it's very clear. It's equity and inclusion across all the board, across, ethnicity, sex, religion, all these things. I, again, come from a very humble background, as I've, just alluded to, and even removing barriers to entry for jobs like a fucking diploma. Like, I don't care if you don't have an undergrad degree or whatever. You want to be
Results. Show me output.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, where I bring you the best and the brightest in the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, I have a fantastic guest today. Many of you might recognize her name. You will certainly recognize some of the past companies that she's worked at. But today, we're going to dig deep. My guest today is Angelic Vendette. She is the CEO and founder of AV Advisory, a marketing consultancy that partners with brands to craft marketing and innovation strategies that help elevate the consumer journey. You may know her. You may know her. You may know her from past TV shows. You may know her from her previous role as global head of marketing at a little yoga company called Alo Yoga. I mean, if you go anywhere, in any place, in any city, you will see men and women wearing them. It's pretty cool stuff there. But aside from that, she has leadership roles at LVMH. You can look up what that means. Louis Vuitton, Hennessy, Sephora, and Stitch Fix, to name a few. She was recently named Vogue Business 100 Innovators and Forbes Most Innovative CMO and CMO to Watch by Business Insider. She's been creating award-winning campaigns on the brand, retailer, and agency side for 15 years. Board roles, all that kind of cool stuff. And we're going to unpack her journey. So let's get to it. Angelic, welcome to the podcast.
Yay. Thanks so much for having me, Adam. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you here. We were playing the name game before. We have so many friends in common. Are you heading out to South by next week?
Actually, I am heading up to South by. I'm on the main stage on Saturday, if you want to drop by, actually.
I would drop by, but I think, Saturday, I will be celebrating my birthday, and I have a big birthday party here in Brooklyn. So I'm going to have to pass, but I appreciate the invite. Hopefully that's a good excuse. But I love South by. I love all. Do you have a favorite barbecue spot in Austin? Do you have like a favorite restaurant? Maybe not even barbecue. Do you have like your go-to?
I don't. This is only going to be the second or actually third time I go to Austin. And so I've been like trying and hopping places every time I go. So all the recommendations are welcome. I have to try them all.
Well, I'll give you a couple offline. I have one. My brother-in-law has a restaurant outside of town, which is fantastic. I'll give you if you want. Anyway, we digress. Let's get into the Angelic Vendette story. And I'm curious. You could Google her. You could go on LinkedIn. You could see her pedigree from Montreal,
from Quebec City.
Quebec. I don't want to insult you. I'm sorry.
Not an insult at all. People think that Montreal and Quebec are one and the same. It's about 3 hours north of Montreal.
But there are some distinct dialect differences, right? There's a little bit of a Quebecian kind of slang on the French take.
Absolutely. I would say that there's more slang hailing from those that live in Montreal. So it's slight difference there.
Well, I love it. But I want to hit the Wayback Machine for a moment. And anyone who's looking at your career, an incredible succession of marketing leadership roles. But I got to ask, what did your parents do for a living?
You know what? My mother was a teacher and also worked in government roles because she was bilingual, so French and English, and that's, a hot commodity coming from a French-speaking province. And my father is a biopharmaceutical engineer. So yeah, both very divergent roles, respectively.
So how the hell does someone like you go down the marketing path? Where does that come from? Where does that entrepreneurial spirit? Both my parents are teachers. My brother's in education, and they're like, "What the hell does Adam do? Like, where does that come from? Where'd that passion first originate? Did you have like a lemonade stand?
Yeah, I think I've always been very entrepreneurial. Like even when I was 5 years old, I was collecting some of the toys and reselling them and trading what was, Pogs at the time, if you remember Pogs.
Oh, we're dating ourselves now. Great.
Oh yeah, dating
Fantastic.
ourselves, trading Pokemon cards, the whole gamut. But really, it's always been kind of that intrinsic drive and curiosity that I've had ever since being a little child. I'm the middle child. I have a brother and sister, and so it's always like you got to get creative because you don't have the newest and shiniest toys, but then you also have a younger sibling that you bring under your wing. So I think all of that's helped shape that characteristic within me.
I love it. Like, did you sell like Girl Scout cookies? There had to be something. I don't know if they have Girl Scouts in Quebec. I'm sure they have some version of it. Maybe they were selling kind of, I don't know, some pastry.
Actually, yeah, yeah, the equivalent of Scouts is Girl Guides, so Girl Guide cookies, and yes, I did sell them. But really, I have had to start working at a very young age. So, independent from what my parents did as a profession or independent of any of that, when I was 13, I found myself in a situation where I had to work full time. And that's obviously not the legal age, right? Legal age is 16 years old. But when I was 13, McDonald's, so kindly accepted me along with my sister who was 16 so that we could come work full time and go to high school full time at the same time. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So let's go off script here, and I want to talk about. I've had a lot of conversations with folks, and I really feel that people who have worked in a service industry, restaurants, hospitality, or anything, especially at any age, it gives you a very unique perspective on customer service and how to interact with people. Let's talk a little bit about some of those early interact. I mean, even dealing with like disgruntled uh, customers, arguing about their French fries and not getting their Le
Oh yeah.
Whopper. What do you call a Whopper in Quebec?
Well, I mean that's Burger King, so it'd be Big Mac
Well,
and
that's a joke.
le Big
That's
Mac en
Le
français,
Big Mac.
le Big Mac. Um,
No,
uh,
that's a Pulp Fiction joke. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I got it. Yeah, it teaches you so
Le
much.
Big Mac.
Yeah, and you know what? It's called Les Restaurants McDonald's. Everywhere in the world,
Does that
McDonald's.
fit on the sign? Is it like little bit? Is it like a
Yeah,
full
yeah.
art?
Like the arch stays, but then you have to have the language around it.
Jeez.
Everywhere else in the world, it's McDonald's, even if you go to like Japan or Argentina, but in Quebec, it's Les Restaurants McDonald's
Hmm.
for language laws. But anyways, it's actually taught me a lot. Not only like the tenacity and perseverance of being a hard worker, but all that aside, back to your question about customer service, like if you are kind and good to people and treat them with respect, well, guess what? Your fry is going to be bigger. Your
Mm-hmm.
McFlurry is going to have more Oreos on it. And that's just like a part of being human, human decency. You might ask for something. And if you treat an employee, a young 13-year-old, and you have no context as to why she's working or, where she is, where she is, and you treat that person with kindness, um, you're going to receive kindness in return.
Always.
And I maybe culturally too in Quebec, it's very much about customer service and the client is always right. And we talk about that a lot, but culturally, it's very much a culture of service. And seeing that at all levels, I was at McDonald's, but obviously when I turned 16, I finally went to the mall and got a job and, progressed all the way through to selling luxury goods as a student at a luxury retailer called Holt Renfrew. And that same client, whether they're
Mm-hmm.
at McDonald's or whether they're buying a Prada handbag, and I'm 17 at this point, the kindness that someone exudes and extends towards the service, worker and employee it has trickled to show who they are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also given me the perception of, how you treat someone in any interaction is how you treat everyone in every interaction. So it's also,
Absolutely.
yeah, good perspective on reading people
I
and
read
yeah.
right, like it's a golden rule. Just do things right way. And I read somewhere recently, and I can't believe I'm blanking on it. It was a company we all know, like a startup that made it big, maybe like DoorDash or something like that. I don't want to misspeak, but
Yeah.
the way the CEO would operate, he would fly high senior level candidates out there, and he would cover their travel. They come out in their interview, and then if it was a really good interview and it went well and they were close to making a decision, he would put them in a car on the way home, their own like car service,
Mm,
and he would ask the driver afterwards how that person acted with them, and if they were a dick, they'd be out.
yeah. Yeah.
Simple, basic test of being a good human.
Right? Yeah, just good human decency. I heard that similarly. There was this executive, I think it was an ex-executive of Coca-Cola, who would sit in the lobby, and while the candidate was waiting to be interviewed, would act as like the receptionist or whatnot, and see how they interacted before he would introduce himself. And I think he was like famously quoted for sharing all about that interaction being
Hmm.
you know, the first
It's
POV you have of someone.
it's such a smart thing too, and I always tell folks too. I mean, listen, I'm in the relationship business. You're in the relationship business.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I need to get to important people, whether I'm pitching business to them or inviting them onto my show. And the assistants, the admins, the folks that work for them, the junior folks, the way you treat them, if you're a jerk to them, I promise you you're not getting through. Those are
Yeah.
the gatekeepers, and you really need to just, carry that through. So this idea of customer service, and again, I always talk about the foundation working in any client services is really managing expectations and going above and beyond and communicating, and that transcends you. So let's get back to the career trajectory. Was it always a decision to go to B school to get your degree?
No. No, not at all, and I don't think I've ever talked about this, like, widely talking about my career, but I had actually applied to, acting school in Montreal, and I just couldn't afford to leave Quebec City and go
Hmm.
to Montreal, and I had gotten a bursary to go to B school. So went to business school because I had gotten a bursary, or I guess it's called a scholarship in the US, but a scholarship via Deloitte,
Hmm.
go to business school, and that's what determined that. Otherwise, I was heading down a very creative path. I loved theater and I loved, the arts. So ended up in a very different trajectory because I had to stay in my hometown.
Do you miss it? Do you ever think what if? Do you have like those kind of what if thoughts? Like what if? Like I'll give you an example. Like here's my regret, and I don't think I've talked about this on the show. So
Mhm.
I went to University of Buffalo. I used to go up to Toronto all the time,
Yep.
and I got accepted to University of Buffalo Business School on a 5-year MBA program, and I was amped for that. I was like, cool, I'm gonna get my MBA. Business was always kind of my trajectory, and I couldn't get past calculus. Calculus was my Achilles heel. And I
Yeah.
ended up failing it 3 times, and I got kicked out of the business school.
Oh,
And I always think like, what if, what if? I mean, everything worked out fine. Everything happens for a reason, but it's kinda like that what if, like, do you look at, like, actors on TV and you're like, "Oh my god, I could be her. I could it's so much better job than what the hell's her face over there." Like,
no, not at all. It's so funny. I had never, the aspirations were never to be famous or anything like that. It came out of passion of the theater and the writing and the art, and I guess the self-expression. And at the same time, I was also very passionate about fashion, which self-expression is a huge part of that passion area there. And I have absolutely no regrets. I am so happy that life brought me, or rather kept me where I was, to learn the skill set and to learn, different opportunities that were presented or that could present themselves to me through business school. So no regrets at all. And I probably would have been terrible. It was more so just following a passion, but I
but
prefer to be behind the scenes.
but that's well, first of all, that's gratitude, right? Understanding your trajectory in life and not having regrets on that too. But there's elements of creativity that come into your career now when you're developing marketing plans, communication strategies. So I want to talk a little bit about that first run at Deloitte, those first job out of school. And it's fun to think about an expectation. Maybe you came in, kind of hot, or maybe you didn't come in hot, but what was one of those like first kind of like first job, pardon my French, fuck ups, where like maybe you like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give you a better answer, but my answer, my biggest fuck up was taking that fucking job. Like,
Why?
well, it was accounting, and I had studied accounting because I got the
You
scholarship.
were you were committed through the Deloitte burst. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, totally, and I was committed because they were paying for my education, and I really just couldn't afford it either way, and this speaks volume because I'm sure in Quebec, it's pretty socialist, and education is free, but I still couldn't afford the
Mm.
textbooks and just all the other stuff that comes with it, but again, education is free, so it's like I was still so grateful, but heading into it, like, my soul was being sucked out of me. I
Oh,
just knew that that light and that vibrancy and that excitement, or zealousness that I bring to life, or that I brought back then too, like, I would walk in and
being
go to client.
squashed.
Yeah, getting squashed, and, like, I actually hated it, and that's the reason I went back to do right, I continued on to do my MBA because I was like, I have studied the wrong thing.
Well, it's interesting about that too. I mean, I had a similar experience when I worked at American Express. I knew the second I got in there, the first day, that the culture wasn't right for me. It was number crunching. And I'm a creative marketer. I'm not like a, yes, metrics, KPIs are all important to tell the story, but not the creative side. And Amex is very analytically data driven. And I knew that wasn't for me. And I said I had to get out. And that's when I went back to the agency side. So, but there, but that foundation, right? Like, what did you learn from a foundational perspective as far as business at Deloitte? Whether it be process, whether it be understanding the metrics and the acumen and the KPIs and the levers that go into analyzing business, like that had to be critical for your knowledge base moving forward, looking back on it. Like, thank God you had that experience.
Totally, totally. And again, so grateful for it. Like I'm grateful for all my experiences. I've made so many mistakes and like all of it. Um, I it's funny because going back to what we were talking about customer service earlier, being an auditor, which is what, I was in
Hmm.
training to do, you're going to different client offices and auditing their books. And no one likes to meet an auditor. Like even as
No, you're like a narc, like a
yeah, yeah,
cop.
and they're
I'm
like
not showing you my shit. Get
exactly.
out.
They've done nothing wrong, and they're like, "I am not," like, they act guilty, because it's so stressful, and which I get, and even as an intern or, like, as the most junior resource coming in, like, you're treated like shit, and you understand it from their perspective, but again, that client conversation and walking them through the process and over communicating, "Well, today we're gonna be looking at X and X balance sheet. Tomorrow, if you could come prepared with,
Hmm.
XYZ," and just having that over communication to really help the teams involved on the client side understand what it is that you're doing has helped me throughout the rest of my career. Like communication and even hand holding throughout processes has been great. And then, needless to say, right, accounting skills in business are always useful. You
You
know,
could look at numbers and understand them in the
yeah,
greater context of a business, whether
yeah,
you're in house or consulting.
exactly. Yeah. But like it's served me well as I ran my own companies. It's served me well as I managed budgets for, at larger brands. So that skill set is certainly not lost. And that's something I'm really appreciative for.
I love that perspective. When was what role was the first time you were managing people?
Um,
Do you remember
oh,
that?
yeah, I
Remember the
do.
first time they put people underneath you?
Yeah, and this is not in the professional capacity, but we could go there after, like the business career capacity. But when I left McDonald's, I was 16, but I had already had 3 years of experience, and so I went to this company called Nine West. So
Mhm.
they sold
Shoes, right? Yeah.
yeah, shoes. And so I became an assistant. I'm thinking in French, assistant gérante, an assistant manager.
Assistant.
Yeah, saucisson, no. An assistant manager, and they put 3 people under me that were, so much older at the time. What, I was 16 and they were like 22. And
Mm-mm.
that was really hard, and there was actually one woman who was in her 40s, and 3 of them were again, the 3 of them were reporting into me, and it was incredibly hard because I like from their perspective, who was I, this kid who is now managing them, who was I to have
How did
what
she get here?
yeah,
Oh,
and like it was called like in French troisième clé, so third key. So you have like 2 managers, but then the assistant manager has the key to the
the keymaster.
yeah, the key master. And like I was responsible for the deposit at the bank on the nights where I was closing the store, when the mall closed at 9 p.m. and I was on shift. And that was incredibly difficult at first, and I had to gain trust, and I had to it's like it sucks when you start a new role, but you have to like prove your worth, and coming into it with like humility and understanding where folks, their perception comes from, I think um was kind of like that first interaction, which was like, okay, yeah, whatever role you get in the future, like let the work speak for itself. You don't
Yeah.
need to change your personality, or you don't need to impose a certain character that I don't have, because I'm very, you know, I'm introverted first and foremost, but secondly, I I like to trust and I like to build relationships with people. And so it could be like you by force you could be like, look, I'm the boss. That's just not who I
It
am.
never
And
works.
that taught me that. So that was the first time.
Yeah, leading by force. But as you progress up the corporate ladder, whether it
Yeah.
be LVMH, Sephora, your teams grew, your responsibilities grew. And your leadership style, did your leadership style change? Like, how are you influenced by your leaders and picking up some of those kind of nuances and tricks, or even like more of a high level kind of 30,000 foot approach to management and leadership?
Yeah, you know, I've I've always been a bit of an anarchist, like a fuck the system type of person. And so although I've worked in very hierarchical organizations like the LVMHs of the world, right? It's a French company, there's a lot of
One of the
hierarchy.
biggest, if not, yeah.
Yeah, of course, and titles are so important. And I feel like I've learned through different manager styles, like what not to do,
Hmm.
or what not to emulate and what doesn't feel good. I've always found myself as a young leader in organizations or a young like leader at the table. And so team members have just, now like even my latest role in house, which was with Allo, my team members were my age or slightly younger. So it's like starting to balance out. But um, it it's I think just continuing to be entrepreneurial and continuing to be myself throughout this has taught me well. Good ideas come from, you know,
Everywhere.
everywhere, and they came from me when I was a kid too, and, like, I wanna support that from folks within my orgs.
And how cool, I mean, I remember this. I remember certain times in my career, especially when I was working on the ad agencies, when I had an idea. And I remember the times when my voice was squashed and no one wanted to hear what, little Adam had to say over there, little assistant account exec Adam. But then I worked my way up and I remember like how good it was, even when I wasn't at the highest level. Like, I have an idea and you want your voices heard. And I watch leaders, especially creative directors who have their own ego and, beating their chests and everything. The good ones would at least listen because they knew it was important to be heard,
Yeah,
and inspiration and ideas come from. I've seen some great ideas come out of the most junior folks on the team because they might be closest to the product in the market. And I
yeah,
talk about, so I used to work for Gary Vee over at VaynerMedia, and he
yeah,
talks about this all the time. He's like, watch what the kids are doing. And it's the whole premise behind V Friends and everything he's doing there too. What are the trends? What are they doing? I watch my 12-year-old daughter on TikTok and I watch what she does. Aside from being an incredible creator, the way she edits and everything, she's a
mhm.
little fashionista now. And I'm following the 12-year-old makeup phase thing with Sephora.
Oh my
If she
gosh.
could have one so they built a Sephora in my suburban town. It's the end of the world. It literally is apocalypse. Like it is, and they put there's like a nice pizza place next to it. So the kids, what they do at that age is they go for pizza and then they go ransack Sephora. It's brilliant. It's the best Friday night of their life. Forget it. They're
Of
fucking
course.
like pigs in shit, just running around Sephora. And then like it's just, and I can't go in there. I'm very sensitive to smells and everything. So I'm
Yeah,
out there calling her Daddy can't come in. I'm not stepping in that store. I'm not putting one foot in there. And then she's not responding. Now I have to go in and I'm like in a hazmat suit, like just too many smells in Sephora. It is. I don't even know how you work there, but we'll save that story for another day. But it's about watching the trends and innovation, and we're going to get to innovation in a moment here because that's a hot topic for you. But we're on this conversation about leadership. I'd be remiss not to ask as a recruiter.
yeah,
You've interviewed many, many people in
yeah.
your career, and I would tend to think that you're pretty good at it. You have a successful career building team. What is a secret Angelique interview question for you to really assess? Listen, by the time someone gets to you, the resume is already there. They have the skill set, they have the background. But how do you assess, character and those soft skills in a 45-minute meeting?
Yeah, I mean, you assess it by just having a real conversation, right? There's no like list of interview questions. But anyone who's interviewed with me can attest to me asking this one thing. I tend to ask people like, okay, let's say you're not interviewing here. What is it that you're doing? Like, what's the dream job? And I always lead with saying, this is not the dream job. This is not your dream. Like, what is the dream? And folks will open up and tell me, they've aspired to be chefs and they want to go do
Hmm.
XYZ, or you know, uh, outside of like the corporate ladder context of the interaction I'm sitting with them at, what is it that they dream to do? And that gives me a really good idea of where, as a leader, I could perhaps help them, or where, as a team member on my team, they'll have additional skill sets or insights, or curiosities. And it's the folks that are like, it's a blatant lie, like to say, like, no, my dream is to work for you as an assistant marketing manager, Angelique. That's like, well, you're not dreaming big enough. And if that's the case, I want more for you as this, stranger that's sitting in front of
Yeah.
me. So being really honest, with ourselves in those situations, and hearing from candidates, tell me their wildest dreams. I think that's That's
I love
something
that.
that gives me a lot of insight, which is outside of the
I,
norm for.
Hey, everybody, I want to talk about a product and platform that I absolutely love and our latest sponsor, Interseller, the prospecting and outreach platform of choice for recruiters and sellers. Whether you're doubling down on business development or recruiting talent, Interseller does all the heavy lifting of finding contact data, automating the email and follow-up process, and syncs all that rich data into 20 plus CRM and ATS platforms. Reach out now and get going on a 2-week free trial and let them know you heard about it from Adam on the podcast today. Check out the link on the website. Appreciate it.
and I appreciate sharing that perspective. I asked that. I mean, I find myself in a really unique place right now as a recruiter, as a podcaster, as a content creator, where I have access to incredible leaders like yourself, and I ask so many of them the same question, and it's the same theme. I want to get to know you. I want to
Yeah.
get to know you as a person, and you also have to be careful also of like bias and other like subconscious biases too, based on those answers. But it's how they present it and the passion that comes by. I want to double back. I was talking before about my daughter on TikTok, and it's in the news everywhere, and they're talking about regulation with social media. Um, it's obviously critical to marketing success. I mean, you've been part of it firsthand, Aloe and the success there. How do you balance moving the needle forward as far as business metrics and social media metrics with being mindful of young kids and social media and their buying habits and consumption? And that's
Yeah.
got to be a tough one. I'd love to get your take on this.
Yeah, I think there's like a huge, much needed conversation right now about, ethics and how it's showing up. And of course, like we could extrapolate all the way to like AI and content creation and generative,
No, we'll get there.
Yeah, for sure. But even in the realms of social media, I don't think that social media, when we launch, well, we, the larger proverbial we, not, me and you specifically, but when social media was launched, we as the consumer, like we went into it, I think blindly, not
Oh, yeah.
necessarily knowing like at what point we'd be hooked and at what point it would be, the
I
one
have no
stop
idea.
for connections. Like I don't have, a black book with phone numbers and birthdays anymore. That's like all on my social.
Hmm.
And, it now needs to like be moved back in, or it's like across my Gmail, or, it's like across other platforms. And it's now at a place where we just have not had enough regulations around it. And my POV as a marketer rings true to that. Like, it's interesting because in certain regions across the world, you have to have certain disclaimers on Photoshop
Hmm.
or,
Altered.
graphic design or alter. Like you go to France and you land at Charles de Gaulle and you see like a beautiful photo of, let's say, Penelope Cruz with like whatever tailleur for the watches. And then at the bottom, it will say like this image has been modified and this model has been edited,
Hmm.
or Penelope Cruz has been photoshopped, and that just isn't the case in social media. And that feels like a huge miss. It feels like a huge miss because as you're talking about your daughter and young girls and young women, and of course I was a young woman once, those things impact you. What you see impacts you day in and day out, and that's why you have these cute tweeny boppers, that are 12 years old after pizza going to Sephora. Like, I didn't know how to do makeup when I was
It's
12, but that's not
crazy.
them now.
I,
And yeah, I'm
and
actually really passionate about this.
good, and it starts with the parents too, also, right? Like my wife and I take a lot of responsibility in monitoring her social media. She has private accounts, but
Yeah,
it's interesting to watch her, like, at this interesting age of how she's influenced. And I think that if you instill the right values and ethics in your children as parents, there's a responsibility. It weighs on both sides. The marketer's responsibility, society, and obviously the parents there too. But it scares me, and I see the effect of, like, if you look at a brand like Shein, right? And out there, like, I mean, that's all my daughter talks about. I mean, thank God it's cheap, so it doesn't nail me. It's not like I'm going to buy your old company stuff and it's costing me an arm and a leg, or or a Lululemon, and I have to buy these
yeah,
$75 little. And she's little, my daughter. Her pants are this big. I'm like, why? Right? I'm like, but the cool part is that I buy that stuff too in the world of athleisure,
yeah,
and now we have a matching. I'm not even going to get into that. We have a matching
yeah.
plain outfit that we wear.
I love it.
The Viore pants. I love Viore. It's a great brand.
Yeah.
I love what they're doing with that. So we have matching pants. But I digress for a moment here. I want to talk about innovation, and seems like we go from AR, VR, spatial, and all these things, but it's all kind of under in my opinion, it's innovation and moving it forward, and it's about experiences. And I
Yeah.
truly think we're so early stage in so many of these. And it's funny, we talked about South by before, and I think the first South by I went to was 2014 or 2015, and I still have, and I looked at it on my nightstand. I have the cardboard Google Glass
Yes.
that you put your phone in.
Yeah. I
And
remember that.
I have it. I'm gonna bring it to put in my office as an artifact because it's so
Yeah.
cool. And I was showing it to my daughter. I'm like, yeah, they had headsets, and I went in there, and it was like this big. It was like wearing like a thing, and now they have the smaller one. But I'm like, this is what I was giving out, and we tried to use it again, but they still have the same technology. But like, what gets you excited technology wise? Like, what's really like lighting your fire? What are the things that you're seeing out there that's getting you excited about moving? Whether it be entertainment, whether it be let's stick with retail. Let's go down. Let's stay in this lane.
Yeah.
Innovations in retail with technology. And I know Allo did some really cool shit with the first the 3D store and the operating in the metaverse. But
Yeah.
what's getting you excited?
Yeah. I think I'm really, really excited about where experiences can be amplified and how technology can help do that, whether that be, yes, online, right? If it's a fully immersive
Hmm.
experience where personalization is involved. So like I'm not a fan of how websites or how the digital journey is right now, right?
Cookied experience.
Yeah, it's a heavily cookied experience and it's not personalized to me. You and I could be on that same, let's say we're talking about Viore, like, because you just mentioned them. We're shopping the same site, but what I'm going to see based on what I've clicked on, like, I wish there was more dynamic
Hmm.
personalization that came and then the site comes to life based on my actions and based on who I am. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about personalization in the space through a dynamic experience that changes in real time. So a lot of that is kind of real time algorithms that will help do that. And it doesn't have to just be on site and on mobile or whatnot. The same rings true for branded experiences, whether you are showing up at a South by or you are showing up at, let's say, an Art Basel, um, not for the sake of PR, for the sake of having your brand out there, but how are those impacting the consumer journey in a way that's better than going in store or better than being online. I'm tired of all this bullshit, which is like, oh, we did XYZ and we slapped our logo on, a festival, or we went to Coachella and we had
Yeah.
our tent. It's like, cool story, bro. But how is that actually,
Yeah.
like, how is that actually amplifying things for me as a consumer? So interested in technologies that will do that. A lot of that sure is immersive and like you've followed some of the launches and like the Apple Vision Pro experience, that's just scratching the surface of what could potentially be. But generally, outside of personalization, really interested in how content is going to continue to change
Let's
on a marketing standpoint with AI.
let's talk. I think experiential is such a hotbed of innovation right now. And
Yeah,
this year, were you at the Super Bowl this year?
I was at the Super Bowl this
All
year.
right, let's. I mean, I was watching from the sidelines, my phone. By sidelines, I mean my phone, and
I love it.
I'm connected to so many great marketers that you and I both know. I'm not going to name drop here, and I was following them all along, and I was following their unique journey as a marketer through this experience.
Yeah.
And whether it be how Pepsi took over the sphere, or whether it be there, well, that was an incredible decision by Pepsi too. For anyone out there who's not playing along, Pepsi decided to forego their sponsoring the halftime show or any $7 million ad, and they put all that money into activations around Vegas. What was your experience as a consumer with the Pepsi work?
Oh my gosh, absolutely loved it. When you drove into the strip, the first thing you see is it called Luxor? Like you see the
Like
Dorito.
they took over the Doritos on the luxury.
Yeah, and that was
Perfect
incredible.
shape. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Nailed it. How'd they not do that sooner, by the way?
I know, I know.
Right? Come on.
That's like the first thing you see even before you head onto the strip from the airport, and that was just like blatant. And so every single person coming into Las Vegas at least saw the Dorito, and that was just remarkable. And then obviously the Sphere takeover, and it was like a soft drip. They had an event, and it was
Brilliant.
everyone came. But from start to end, I would say that Pepsi probably won the Super Bowl, right? From a branding perspective.
And they didn't
And
even have an ad or a halftime show. Kudos to Todd Kaplan, everyone over there. Great job, guys.
yeah, yeah, Todd and crew, amazing. I agree.
That
So
was that was a good one. And were you at the game?
yeah, I was
Okay.
at them as well.
How is Usher live on TV? We couldn't hear him. We kept on putting the volume. I mean, it was like It looked like a cool show.
I feel like I watched like reruns of it. Is that the right word? No, I
Yeah.
watched
Yeah.
like
Replays.
reruns?
Yeah. Yeah.
Replays. Thank you.
Same
Replays.
thing. Same thing.
Okay, okay. And you could hear it well. I didn't realize that live you couldn't hear it. I think like the magic and the mysticism of being on site, and like the fireworks and the dance and the light, like it was an incredible music show. So we could hear perfectly fine. Most people were singing and chanting, so it went with it.
They,
It felt like a concert.
but they upped the game. They really upped the game. In Vegas is like, what a bet. What, listen, out of all the cities, it should be Vegas every year.
Really?
I mean, just because there's so much other things to do, right? Like you've been to Super Bowls at other cities, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm in Indianapolis. It's like, oh, it's, like
Yeah,
there's other things to do there. I want to
yeah.
talk about the success of Alo Yoga. I mean, you were behind the you and your team were behind the wheel. That what do you attribute to the insane acceleration of brand success?
Yeah, a lot of it is right time, right place. And I can't say that it's myself and my team alone. Obviously, there's a lot of
And a great
strategy
product.
and great product. Exactly.
You have to have a great product. I mean, we see what happens. You can
Yeah,
market a shit product, and we've seen it, but then after a while, people are like this product sucks, and just because of
yeah.
people endorsing it, you know.
Well, I have a controversial POV on this, and then I'll come back to the answer.
Yeah, please.
I think you can have a shit product and have excellent marketing, and you're going to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you can't have excellent product and shit marketing, no one's going to see it. So it's like, anyways, my rule of thumb in the middle is that you can have shit product and excellent marketing, and um, you could still make it. But anywho, I digress. I'm not saying that that's specific to the
No, but
product.
it's true too. I mean, you could, but again, like you can only put so much lipstick on a pig. It's still going to be. I mean, pigs are great animals, but I'm, using that expression. At the end of the day, the product, and you have to have consumer longevity, and you have to have loyalty to it as well. Unless it's a money grab. But Alo Yoga, like, what? I mean, how do you define that marketing mix between
Yeah.
the direct to consumer marketing, the influencer marketing, out of home, all those pieces? Was there a formula, or was it a lot of fuck around and find out? Let's pull back the curtain here.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of it came by knowing the consumer and really ringing true to the pillars that we had set forth in marketing, which were, an early adopter client. So that means yes, on the trend front, an amazing design team, but also yes, on like the consumer journey front, they're trend forward. So yeah, early adopters. Then it had to be aligned with fashion. When I joined, we were still an athleisure company. And so we're
Mhm.
playing around with like the Beyond Yogas, the Lululemons, the Athletas, you name
Mhm.
them in the world. But there's so much room to be a white space and to float outside of athleisure and just another yoga brand and into a wellness brand and into a fashion brand. And because a lot of us were wearing athleisure over the pandemic, right? This is at the beginning of the pandemic,
Mhm.
and this white space,
Right
this like,
time.
yeah, right time, right place, and right like, oh, this is the strategy we're going forward with. So
I could wear this on my Zoom call. I could wear it to yoga. I could do yoga in my house, get off my Peloton, come in and not have to change.
exactly. And like ultimately what we wanted to build, again, being that fashion brand, beyond also being a wellness brand, was like you could also wear it out to the club on Saturday night in Manhattan. It's like it's a vibe, it looks good, and here's the idea of someone wearing it that we put out in the world, so the marketing around that. So yeah, early adoption, clarity on that, and then lastly, leveraging technology, leveraging D2C directly versus driving people into store. Again, timing of things. This is the pandemic, so if I'm not
People aren't
building,
going anywhere.
that's right, you're not going anywhere. So if I'm not building strong online communities, and if I'm not building really strong kind of ambassadorships, doesn't mean they have to be paid, but via influencers, content creators, via, athletes, then we were not going to make it. So it was that clarity on D2C being kind of the winning channel. And we hopped in right away,
You mentioned the C word,
the C word.
community. You mentioned the C word. How do you define community?
Yeah, I think community is a regrouping of people that have shared values and passions. And from a brand leader perspective, I don't think community is like us versus them. Community is all of us. If we have that shared passion, in this example, um, wellness. It doesn't have to just be yoga, right? For us, it was specific to wellness, but really interested in trends, whether that was, wellness trends and like, cryotherapy followed by, infrared saunas. I'm also
Cold plunge.
cold plunge. I'm
I did not, by the way, for the record, I fucking hate them. I've done it. I'm not interested. I despise it. I don't like cold water. I am a warm water person. I am okay with never doing cold plunges again. That's it. Sorry. I just had to get on my soapbox.
Well, I grew up like with a Nordic culture,
Yeah.
right? In Quebec, it's like cold 8 months of the year. And so, like we very much so have like, we'll plunge into a cold lake and then go take a hot sauna. So I grew up with that culture.
But I like sauna. We
Yeah,
call
yeah.
it, and we call it in Russian, it's banya. I love
Yeah,
the banya culture. And if you're in New York and you go to the banyas in Brooklyn and the city, they have the cold plunges. So when I'm there, I will do the pull. They literally have like, it's like the bucket,
yeah,
like
yeah.
old school, and then it just dumps on you like you're at the water park, and every cell in your body just
Yeah,
yeah.
pick it up and then like steam it
That's the
out.
only time I like to do it. Okay, I digress, right? But it's like
No, no, it's definitely a part of it. And so yeah, back to
community.
the community.
Where were we on that cold plunge community? The C word is cold plunge.
Pledge, exactly. Um, uh, it's knowing that they're, yes, early adopting and trend forward in that regard, but also trend forward in terms of the fashion trends. So now we have wellness and we have people that want to look good doing their wellness activities, and we could facilitate that. We encourage that. We support that. We give stuff, for free, left, right, and center, and like
Mm-hmm.
start challenges and like share us your pose or share us how to do better breath work. And it
It's all
started,
inclusive.
it was all inclusive, and it wasn't about the clothes or buying, the freaking brand. It was about like the practice, and how we were
Love that.
contributing and educating. So
Man,
yeah,
the success
was,
story is it's a master class there. So I had towards the end of last year, I had Kat Cole from Athletic Greens on my show, and I wish I asked her this question, but I'll take your take on it from a professional perspective. It's like we're doing play by play in sports here. Do you logically see AG going into fashion, or could you? Or are they going to stay in their lane? Like, what's your hot take on AG? First of all, I love the product, by the way.
yeah, same.
Like it. When I ran out of it, I got to get more. Side note, Kat, if anyone at Athletic Greens is interested, partnership here. I will literally trade product for ads. I will do that all day long. I love the old school barter system. I found when I was doing it religiously for 3 months, sometimes I wouldn't even have coffee in the morning. But if I did have coffee, it wasn't until almost noon.
Yeah, that's incredible. I don't drink coffee, but
Good for you.
it's not. I've never drinking coffee, so it's not even like I've stopped. I've never had coffee, but I think they have like from a merch perspective. Now that being said, if it's built into a lifestyle beyond the current products that they have now, why not? Why not have fashion and why not have clothing that's representative? It doesn't have to be Athletic Greens branded, but it could be like a mantra for what it stands for. And you could have like the hat, the crew neck,
Yeah.
all these things.
Yeah, it does have to be a full clothing line. I mean, they have some merch. I think
Yeah,
maybe I
yeah,
don't know.
I think so too. I don't know. I've seen water bottles, so for sure, yes. Or like bottles
The
where you're
shakers.
yeah, the shakers. So that's like merch adjacent.
Merch
But
adjacent. Swag.
yeah, merch adjacent. Swag.
You should
Yeah.
see how much swag. I'm not usually I'm wearing like my swag. I'm not wearing any swag today. I went swagless on my vacation on purpose. I needed a swagless trip. I wanted to be incognito. But aren't you that guy from the podcast? And I recognize no. I didn't want any of that.
So no swag, but you look pretty swaggy. I'm like trying to see your tee and what you're wearing.
Well, so this is really cool. This is there's a community I'm part of called Breakout. Maybe you heard of them. It's the Breakers, and this is our shirt from Newark and from the Newark trip last
Oh
year.
yeah, Breakout 21. Is that your
This
number?
vintage. No, it was 2021. This is the
21. Okay.
my jersey number is 23 or 31. I don't. That's not my. But was it a tough decision to leave Alo Yoga and go out on your own? No,
It was not. Absolutely not.
Would you mind unpacking it a little bit?
Yeah,
As much as you can, want to, feel inclined, disclaimer.
absolutely.
Insert legal disclaimers before.
No, not at all, not at all. Everyone knows I only have like good vibes towards that. I used to be an entrepreneur, and the reason I came into the US is because I ran my own digital marketing agency for about 4.5 years. I was acquired by one of the largest CPG companies in the world, and had two decisions. One was to go internal for 2 years, right? That little handcuff, or I had an offer from out of country, which was LVMH and
Hmm.
Sephora. And my ex business partner is still internal over there to this day. But I was like, no, let me immigrate. Let me move to California. This was like my dream. My childhood dream was to live in California, which again, disclaimer, I still live in California now. And it was just like that entrepreneurial piece that has always really gotten me. But through visas and through the types of immigration that I was here, I was tied to employers. But I was still like,
Mm.
you could look at my, this is not hidden or anything, right? Like I also started a different company after selling this while I was an employee. It was in the faux fur coat realm, and I was selling to Bloomingdale's and
Mm.
all this stuff. And I really love business. I love running a business. I love seizing an opportunity. And so finally, when it came time where, got my green card and it don't need to be tied to an employer, really took the time to think, what is it that I want to do now? And that was starting a business. And so I did try something that was in the Web3 space outside of a philanthropic organization that I did also start in that space, but really try to start a new business, and worked on it for maybe, was it like 6 months um, before I left Allo, and um was going to plan to like do that full time throughout the summer, and that didn't fully work
Mm.
out. That was with 1111 and M13, and love that crew so much,
Give it a
and it just,
shot.
yeah, it was amazing, but it wasn't the right time, and crypto was dying and Web3 was
Not
dying.
today.
Yeah, well, yeah. And so it just made logical sense for me to go back into entrepreneurship. And now I run my own agency, and I'm able to sit on boards
Love it.
and be highly involved. So not difficult at all.
So
Yeah.
what's next? What's the next chapter you're writing?
I mean, I'm continuing to write this chapter of sitting on boards and of consulting and advising. I realized that marketing has such a huge impact into a company's growth. And, being able to see, a 2x and 3x multiple within a short matter of time, I'm excited about joining or helping founders and companies at that stage get them to kind of that next hurdle. So that's really exciting for me, only because I've been there myself, right, as an
You
entrepreneur,
could get
but
back.
also on the brand side. So love that. And yeah, really embracing this journey, to be honest with you.
I love it.
I'm embracing, um, just being more involved in the communities online that are all about innovation, that are all about, like I said, really passionate about putting safe guardrails around the types of content we're putting out. So right now my focus is, on the AI front. Like you see all of these AI bots coming out, and
Oof, scary
know,
time, especially around this election. Yep.
yeah, and like their personas, it's just so unfortunate. I don't want to make this all about women again, but it's all like these very sexy, like looking depictions
It's
of
like we're
women,
going so backwards.
and you're like, what is this? Like, where are A, regulations? Where are B, when you think of open sourced, um, like engineers and developers that are working on this, like, why are we using one subset
Mm-hmm.
of what women should be and look like for it to come out in, larger language model tools that we as consumers use today?
Right,
So,
like where's that data coming from in these LLMs? Like who's feeding garbage in, garbage out? Like who's feeding it?
well, men are feeding it first and
Mm,
foremost, right? And so that's where, like, ethical,
shocker.
yeah, shocker for
Shocker
sure.
there.
But yeah, so getting involved in those communities in ways that I wouldn't have been able to in the past that are meaningful to me.
And on the philanthropic side, what causes are close to you?
Yeah.
I never really asked that. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I
I
think it tells
mean,
a lot about it. It's just interesting too. Like, and it's not like some people are into like, oh, that's pretty deep. It's to be like, no, I'm saving fucking trees, right? Like,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. For me, look, it's very clear. It's equity and inclusion across all the board, across, ethnicity, sex, religion, all these things. I, again, come from a very humble background, as I've, just alluded to. And, even removing barriers to entry for jobs like a fucking diploma. Like, I don't care if you don't have an undergrad degree or whatever. You want to be,
Results. Show me output.
that's right, or curiosity, because you can learn. But same thing for giving equal equal rights and equal chances
Hmm.
to across the board. Those are all things that are really, really important to me. And then obviously, obviously, women's rights.
And dogs, because I see one right behind
Oh
you.
yeah, yeah. Sorry,
But
my dog.
is it, what do you got there, boy or girl?
This is a girl. This is Bali.
Bali
She
blends in with the wood. Wow,
she
look at that. Did you ever
would.
notice that on camera? Like,
I
does she go
haven't.
like camouflage? Like, wow, that's cool.
That's why I got
You
her,
planned
so
it.
she could blend in and out.
So it doesn't
Yeah,
upset
Bali.
your Zoom calls.
That's right. Bali's a Shiba Inu, and I have another one,
Shiba Inu.
who's playing over there.
Get in on that Doge. Well, let's bring it home here. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for opening up your heart and your experience and your wisdom. And I know so many people out there are going to learn a ton. But let's bring it home here. 2 questions I ask every guest, because this is my masterclass. It's my masterclass that I've curated, that I share with my audience. Kind of my little TED
Yeah.
chapter book here. So, Angelique, what is the single greatest piece of advice you've ever received that you take action on daily? This isn't like the pie in the sky one. This is like the daily actionable one.
Yeah. Exercise every single day. Context for that, it's not about looks. It's not about whatever. It just keeps my mind sharp. My mother has early onset Alzheimer's, and I know I need to get 30 minutes of just like that oxygen to the brain
Hmm,
to keep me healthy. And so exercise daily to just be sharp and be at your kind of your best.
I love it. And last but not least, you look back on your life, and thank you for starting the show talking about gratitude. And you talk about coming from humble beginnings. And I'm sure there were those tough times, and you worked your ass off and you worked your way up. And there was those times you're going to dig down deep and harness that inner tenacity to pull you up. And in the same breath, you sit here with such gratitude and appreciation and doing good in the world, doing good for yourself, your family, building businesses, empowering folks. What is your compass? What is your beacon? Angelique Vendette, what is your North Star in life?
That's such a hard or personal question to answer. Um,
That's why I ask it at the end.
yeah, I
I'm not going
love
to
it.
start with that. It's like going on the first date and, whatever you want
Yeah,
to say, but it's like, let's warm it up a little bit.
yeah. Let's slowly work our way. Um, you know, my North Star is it's so funny. Like everything around my life revolves around love and family, and um, the silliest thing to probably say, right? It feels like banal, but knowing that family comes first, knowing that the love that I put out there comes first. Could be like, family that I was born into or family that I've adopted along the way. And um, that being proud of who I am in those circles. And, again, we haven't spoken about this, but who you are at home and who you are at the office should be one and one. People are like, oh, that person's, a B at the office, but not a B at, like, no, you're the same person throughout. Like you show up the way that you are and that your
Hmm.
values are all the time. But being someone and leading a life that I'm proud of, knowing that it's based in goodness and based in love, and that I'm putting my family, my loved ones, my friends that are, now family at kind of the pinnacle of what I do is the reason that I do what I do.
That is what it's all about, right? That's what
Yeah.
it's all about. Angelique, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a fantastic conversation. I truly appreciate you for carving out 52 minutes and 43, 44, 45 seconds here. Where could folks find you? Where could they connect? Where could they learn more?
Yeah, on LinkedIn. I actually answer all of my DMs, every single
It's not a
DM that
bot.
on LinkedIn. No, it's not a
It's
bot.
not Angelique Bot 2000.
I mean, if I have a word with it from an AI perspective, there will never be a bot.
Angelique Bot 2000. I got this filter on the phone. I never use this one too. This is
Oh
a
my God.
Pause Bot 2000. And then you Pause Bot 2000. I don't know what this sounds like. I can hear it in my ear what it sounds like. It's terrible. Anyway, let's
And
get it.
yeah, this would not be the voice of the Angelique bot. This
No,
would
No, not at all.
But yeah, yes, but anywho, wait, what was I going to say? Thank you so much for having me, Adam, first and foremost. Also, back to the beginning of this conversation, I don't know if this was more interesting than a tour of the best barbecue spots in Texas. And so folks can let us know. But yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Again, I answer everything, and I love connecting with whether it's other entrepreneurs or business folks or folks that are starting their career out. I'm here for all of it.
I'm here for all of it too. Angelic, Vendette, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Remember, if this show resonated, leave a review. Rating it goes a long way. You know where to find out more at thepodcast.com. Follow us on all the social media channels. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.